Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming. Mark Rylander from the state of Texas. As I told you, the order for this afternoon, General Paxton and General Racine will offer opening remarks, followed by the other AGs who have assembled. And then I'll come back up. We'll open it up for a brief time of question and answer. And then I'll stay around afterwards as the AGs have to leave and try and help you the best that I can. General Paxton from Texas.
Well, thank you all for being here. Pretty remarkable day. I never thought I'd be standing in front of this many cameras in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. So thank you all for being here. I want to thank my fellow AGs. We have 50 attorney generals from across the nation who are involved in this investigation that we're leading from Texas. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate their support and their interest in a really important issue for our time. And what we've all learned is that while many consumers believe that the internet is free, certainly we know from Google's profits of $117 billion that the internet is not free. And this is a company that dominates all aspects of advertising on the internet and searching on the internet, as they dominate the buyer side, the seller side, the auction side, and even the video side with YouTube. This investigation is not a lawsuit. It is an investigation to determine the facts. And right now we're looking at advertising, but the facts will lead to where the facts lead. And even as we speak, we'll be up here about a minute, there'll be 3.8 million searches and a lot of advertising dollars just made in every minute that one of these people speaks. Google will be in control of most of those searches. So thank you all for being here. I'm going to let Carl Racine, who I really appreciate his involvement in this. And Carl, I want you to say a few words.
Thank you, Ken. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Carl Racine, the Attorney General of the District of Columbia. I'm here to really re-emphasize and reiterate what Ken has said, and that is that today 50 Attorney Generals from different states and territories are launching an investigation into Google's potential monopolistic behavior. That behavior and what the subject matter of our inquiry is focusing immediately on two areas. Search, which obviously Google dominates. In fact, it wasn't too long ago, about 2.5 years ago, that my Attorney General colleague Sean Reyes from Utah and I sent a letter to Google inquiring about their power in search. It used to be a day when we searched Google that we would be presented with links unrelated to the Google business. Very compelling analyses suggest that the overwhelming number of query responses relate to Google businesses and or advertisers that pay for that slot within those links. Attorney generals really care about where the rubber meets the road, and that is for the residents of their states and consumers. We also care about businesses, especially small businesses, that may be locked out as a result of what may be monopolistic power. This is an unusual setting right here. I'm next to friends of mine who I vehemently disagree with on issues like immigration, reproductive rights, gun rights, and other issues, certainly health care. But we are acting as one today in regards to launching what I know will be a fair and full investigation that will follow, as Attorney General Paxton said, the facts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, General Paxton and General Racine. I'm Kevin Clarkson. I'm the Attorney General of the state of Alaska. My state, Alaska, has a significant interest in this investigation because of the unique geographic location of Alaska. Our unique location causes many of our businesses to be highly dependent upon the internet for advertising in order to reach lower 48 and international markets. And the anti-competitive activity of the nature that this bipartisan coalition of states and attorneys general will be investigating has the potential for driving up the cost of business for businesses in Alaska. And I'm very pleased about the bipartisan nature of this investigation and the broad base of states that are involved in it. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I am Jason Rounsberg, the Attorney General of South Dakota. We have 77,000 square miles with only 11 people per square mile. We like wide open spaces, but we like competition as well. We link $152 million in activity occurs just in my state alone coming from Google and the businesses it touches. But we want it to be fair. We want it to be a level playing field. So that's why I joined this bipartisan coalition of 50 states' attorney generals. I think that's remarkable on any issue. Right across the road we have the Congress, which many times can't get along on a lot of different issues. But here we are together today. So I think that speaks volumes. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Curtis Hill. I'm the Attorney General for the state of Indiana, and I'm pleased to join this bipartisan coalition of 50 attorneys general as we conduct a preliminary, and I emphasize a preliminary investigation into the issues that you've heard spoken thus far. You know, it's no doubt that the internet is the superhighway of information, and what we have found is that Google, the giant company Google, is the one that's directing most, if not all, of the traffic on this highway. And it's important that we determine for our states whether this traffic determination is being done in a fair manner. We certainly want to make sure that the internet has competition, and more importantly, we want to make sure that we're preserving innovation, the innovation that many small technical companies have to provide us on a regular basis. So I'm very pleased that we're getting this process started. It's a long way to go, and we want to also emphasize that we want to be fair in this process. Again, it's a preliminary investigation. We'll take a good hard look, and we will hope to work with everybody involved towards a full review of these situations. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am Arkansas Attorney General Leslie Rutledge. I'm proud to stand here today at the Supreme Court of the United States with my colleagues. We are Republican, Democrat, men, women, black, white, and Hispanic, all standing together to protect the free market, to protect competition, but most importantly, to protect the American consumer from this online search engine juggernaut. As we announced today, the investigation into Google. As a new mom, when my daughter is sick and I search online for advice or doctors, I want the best advice from the best doctors, not the doctor and not the clinic who can spend the most on advertising. Most Americans think it's free to Google something, but it comes at a cost at the freedom to choose the best products from the best companies. 90% of Google's $117 billion annually comes from digital advertising. Every second of every day, on every computer screen and every smartphone screen, there is a Super Bowl ad personalized to you, powered by Google. When a company becomes a verb, it may seem as though the states are David taking on Goliath. But I'm proud to stand tall with my fellow attorneys general from across the country as we protect the free market and protect the American consumer. Thank you and God bless.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Utah Attorney General Sean Reyes. There's no question that Google is the market dominant player when it comes to internet search with nearly 90% of a share. And there's nothing wrong with being the dominant player if it's done fairly. That's what our investigation intends to uncover and reveal, whether Google has played by the rules and acted fairly. There's a fine line sometimes between aggressive business practices and illegal ones. Usually the line is very clear. And again, our investigation will determine whether Google has crossed that line. Now, I want to reiterate something. This is an investigation. It's preliminary. Google is entitled to a presumption of innocence while we look at whether these actions that Google has conducted are illegal or not. That said, there is a reason why there's so many of us standing here and joined together, and I think that speaks to the pervasiveness. I think it speaks to the seriousness. I think it speaks to the continuity of the complaints and the concerns that have been raised with us by the American people over time. evidence that we've seen, concerns that we've heard. As General Racine referenced, this is not new to us. These are issues that we've been dealing with, and they're even more now. In 2016, not only did we talk to Google, we sent a letter together to the FTC asking them to reopen an investigation into some of Google's alleged manipulation of search practices. We were very heartened when our EU colleagues took action, and we're even more emboldened today standing together here and with colleagues across the nation who are all taking this with the seriousness that it represents and that it's due. This is not anti-tech, to the opposite. This is actually for the benefit of the tech ecosystem, to help level the playing field. And the last thing I'll say, as someone who spent my entire career representing tech companies, investing and running tech companies, I strongly, absolutely believe that tech and innovation has the ability to raise the quality of life, lessen human suffering, even save lives. But the question for us today is whether Google has strayed from its founding principles to not do evil in its search and relentless drive to be the market dominant player. And again, that is what our investigation together, bipartisan, jointly, will uncover. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ashley Moody. I'm the Attorney General for the great state of Florida. And you heard 50 Democrat and Republican AGs are banding together to begin this investigation of Google. You do not hear that often. And while Democrats and Republicans may be from different parties, we all have a common bond, and that is we are charged with the responsibility of protecting the citizens of our state. When there is no longer a free market or competition, this increases prices, even when something is marketed as free, and harms consumers. Is something really free if we are increasingly giving over our privacy information? Is something really free if online ad prices go up based on one company's control? Google monitors our online behavior and captures data of every one of us as we navigate the internet. And this investigation will initially focus on the capture of that information and whether Google embedded itself in every level of the online market ad sales to monopolize this industry. We appreciate you being here today, to taking note of the fact that we have come together in such an important investigation. It is extremely important as we determine whether or not our data and what we are revealing is truly the price we're paying, as Google decides on whether they control what we share, see, and pay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I want to thank my fellow AGs. I'm Eric Schmidt from Missouri. My fellow AGs who've come together today in an unprecedented way, in a bipartisan way, to launch this investigation. An investigation aimed at getting at the truth. An investigation to determine whether Google's business practices are unlawful and anti-competitive. Google is one of the largest tech companies on the planet. People every day access the internet through Google, and Google controls a lot of that information. Of course, 90% of the revenue that Google derives is from advertising. And the advertising ecosystem is complex, but it's fair to say that Google controls or is a major player in every aspect of that supply chain. And so to put that into context, it's like if you were trying to buy a house and Google owned the house, and Google owned not just that house, but a lot of houses on your block and in your neighborhood, in your city, in your state, and in the country, quite frankly. And they also were the seller's agent. And they were also the buyer's agent, helping you negotiate a fair price. Certainly there are questions that need to be raised. I support innovation. I support free markets, which is why this investigation is so important. That we ensure, that we absolutely ensure that even the biggest of big tech companies are accountable, and even that the biggest of big tech companies are subject to the rule of law. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Herbert Slatery. I'm the Attorney General for the state of Tennessee. Thank you for coming. One other thing that we're interested in is the access to the market and the anti-competitive efforts that we think and we've heard from. The business model is based on the accumulation of data, and our questions are, how do they protect that data? They can deny the access to the data to other parties. We wonder if they have acquired companies in their nascent new form to snuff out competition. And another way to preserve that, that data, that position, is to take a position in a company and find out what their technology is, and then roll out their own competing service. And so all of those areas we want to look at, those are classic antitrust practices, and we want to be sure that there is competition for the consumer. And that is our interest, is the protection of the consumer, price increases and things like that, but consumer welfare. And we would want to look into those three particular areas on access to the markets. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Attorney General Jeff Landry from Louisiana. I want to thank General Paxton, General Racine, and all of my colleagues who have joined us today. Many of you question why we're here, and we're here because there is an absolutely existential threat in our virtual marketplace. And let me explain this for those of y'all in the media you would understand. Let's say we go back before the invention of radio or television, when the single source of content was print media. Newspapers were it. They were the king of information. So would we in this country have allowed one person or one company to own all of the printing ink, the printing presses, and the paper used to print paper, newspapers? And the answer to that is absolutely not. Because somewhere along the line, if someone would have tried to monopolize that entire industry, our government would have disallowed it. They would have disallowed the mergers, or they would have broken them up. Digital advertising in our virtual marketplace is supposed to enjoy the same free market principles as other commodities. It is supposed to be a supply and demand based. It's the way that the free market is supposed to work. What has happened is that as the internet has expanded, volumes of places were created for the placement of ads. Google's dominance as a search engine allowed them to tell advertisers that Jeff Landry was looking for a particular type of tennis shoe, looking for a particular place to go hunting, or a vacation to a specific area. It eliminated the guessing game for advertisers. By going to Google and purchasing advertising on their platform, advertisers are able to strategically target their audiences. Unfortunately, this also means that Google's dominance now allows them to pick winners and losers in this exchange. Continuing down this road will kill online publishing, or Google will stay who stays and who goes. How's that for the fulfillment of the internet promise of open places for ideas, debate, and content? The internet was said to be revolutionary because it enhanced and expanded human contact, a place for ideas and conversations to take place. It enhanced the exchange of ideas and the freedom to efficiently publish that content. If we don't act now, that dream will die, and that's what this investigation is about. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Doug Peterson, Nebraska Attorney General. When 50 Attorney Generals come together, 50 Attorney Generals send a strong message to Google. And I'm not going to quote Joe Biden, but I am going to tell you it's a big deal. And this is significant as we go forward, and we've got a lot of work to do. And I would just say that I look forward to the fact of cooperating with U.S. Department of Justice in that, but not only the U.S. Department of Justice, but also cooperating with international agencies that are looking at this issue. It really is significant, the fact that you have the UK, France, Australia, the European Commission looking at this, all indicate that this is a significant issue. So I look forward to working with my partners in this case, and I hope that we can do and understand that our mission is to serve the citizens of our state. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Rick Rylander.
All right, the AGs are happy to take some questions. General Paxton and General Racine will answer questions. Unless you have a specific question for one of these AGs, please ask for them by name. Let's do this orderly, and we'll take questions.
And let me just say, I couldn't be more proud of the women and men behind me and those who have signed on. They're amazing people, and I just really want to thank them for their comments today. And as far as questions, just know that this is the beginning of our investigation, so we may not know all the answers. We don't know all the answers. And there may be some things we just can't answer because it is an investigation, but Carl and I are happy to answer questions. And if you have a specific question for a specific AG, just let us know. So,
thank you so much, Dave Ferrer from Amlex. I understand that it's early days. I understand that the but would you be willing to go ahead and assume that the conclusion finds monopolistic tendencies? Can you discuss what some of the possible remedies might be? Would Google, for example, be required to sell off DoubleClick?
So I'm going to let Kurt, we'll both answer questions, but the answer is we are literally just starting the investigation, and this is the kickoff, the demand for information. We just sent it out, and so it's really difficult to answer that question with as little as we know. I don't know if,
No, I think Ken has it right, and it's certainly a fair question. But generally speaking, you've got to find liability before we get to any remedies. And the remedies available for an antitrust action are there for folks to see. There's behavioral modification, the kind that you talked about. But I think we're better off leaving remedies unless and until we get to a remedy stage.
Thanks. Tony Rom from the Washington Post. Attorney General Paxton, you began by saying that the initial focus is in advertising. But as I listened to all of your peers, I heard things including smartphones, search, data privacy, and so forth. Is it fair to say that this is a top-to-bottom antitrust review of all of Alphabet and Google's business practices?
it's not fair to say that yet. We've definitely started off with our questions. Our request for information is all related to advertising. So, you know, sure. So all of our information, everything that we requested so far is related to advertising. If there are other facts that demonstrate that we need to go in another direction, we will talk about it, and we're certainly open to doing that.
Dave Shepardson from Reuters, just to follow up on that. Does that mean you've already issued subpoenas or civil investigative demands to Google in regards to advertising?
Yes, that's correct.
Can you tell us, is there just one state missing? Is it 49 states in the District of Columbia?
It's 48 states, District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, and there are 2 states missing.
Can you tell us what those 2 states are?
Well, you might not be surprised at California, where Google is located, and then Alabama.
Yes, sir. Hi, Andrew Harris from Bloomberg News.
And by the way, they can still change their minds.
Even if it's too soon to say what a possible remedy would look like, let's turn the question around. What should a fair marketplace look like? What isn't happening that you think should be happening?
So, and we'll go with both of us. In a fair market, you shouldn't punish somebody for having a unique technology. But when you have companies that may be preventing other entrants into the market with unfair practices, and dominating a market that then ultimately hurts consumers, because even though there's maybe not a direct cost to searching on the internet, if advertising costs are higher, who ends up paying that? The advertisers pay it. That's all passed on to consumers. So ultimately, our consumers are harmed. So that's our focus.
Yeah. The only thing I would touch on and emphasize again is the ubiquitousness and the power of the search engine itself. I mean, Google itself in its initial first years talked about it being the best search engine to find you what it is you're looking for and then let you loose on the internet. We know that over time that model has changed to where the search result invariably is laden with Google-related goods, services, and those who pay Google. It's a very different model than that model with which they began, and it certainly merits our scrutiny as it has merited the scrutiny of other sovereigns.
Sir. Hi, Brian Fung with CNN. Wonder if you feel that there's been sufficient antitrust enforcement by federal authorities to date, and I wonder if Attorney General Reyes can also address this question.
So I'll just start off by saying we've talked to the Department of Justice. They're looking at these issues on numerous fronts, and so I'll leave those to the federal government. This is a state action, and so whether they get involved or don't get involved, that's really up to them. So we also, Ray, if you want to go up there.
Yeah, thanks. I'll just simply comment and say we're very encouraged right now, working with the administration, with the Department of Justice. I think the FTC is also starting to go in the right direction. I referenced our request for the FTC to open that investigation, and I'll only comment on that. They declined to reopen that investigation at the time that General Racine and I asked them to, and the EU then issued fines and sanctions based on those very same complaints and concerns, and I'll just leave it at that.
And something I should add, this has international overtones. There's a professor of economics from Italy who is here and she told me that this has, great interest overseas as well.
Ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Even if the federal government does not take action after their investigations, will the state attorneys general take action no matter what?
So, Carl,
yeah, let me just make it really clear here. The state attorney generals, they are an independent bunch, and they can be, quite tenacious. So I'm very confident that this bipartisan group is going to be led by the facts and not be swayed by any conclusion, that may fall short, if you will, if it's inconsistent with our facts on the Fed side. So we're going to do what we think is right based on our investigation.
Just a couple more questions, sir.
Yeah, hi, Brennan Bordelon with National Journal. We're across the street right now from Capitol Hill. There are ongoing antitrust probes related to the tech industry there, particularly in the House. Do you guys have a message for lawmakers in Congress as they look at this stuff? Is this action a message to Congress?
I wouldn't say it's a message to Congress. This is really an independent, as Carl said, an independent action by the states. And we're not reacting to Congress. We're not trying to lead Congress. We're trying to do what we think is right for our consumers. And so this is clearly not related to anything Congress is doing or the federal government. This is our independent action.
Ma'am.
Charlotte Monty from AFP News Agency. On Friday, we learned that there was an investigation on Facebook. Today it's on Google. Are there more companies to come?
Yes, on Friday, the New York State Attorney General Tish James announced that she had organized a group of about 11 attorney general, also bipartisan, I should note, to review Facebook and its conduct under the antitrust laws and norms. Whether this is a coordinated expansion, I think remains to be seen. The fact of the matter is that each and every one of our consumers, our citizens, and the residents of our states do either have or yearn to have access to the internet, and therefore it's a proper place for State Attorney General to ensure that the landscape is fair and not unfairly manipulated in one company's direction.
Last question right here.
Jerry Dunleavy with the Washington Examiner. Are you able to let us know what you're doing in coordinated fashion, and then what you plan on doing state by state as individual attorneys general as well?
So I guess coordinated fashion as it relates to the states?
As it relates to this coalition coming together.
Okay, so we have this coalition of 50 states. We have a leadership team that we communicate with every week, and then we'll have, as we learn more information, we'll end up having calls and allow states to participate as much as they want to. So it'll be a very open process for the states, and that's the way we want to run it.
Yeah, it's a little different than an individual state launching a lawsuit, for example. In that instance, other states are free to join or add support if they think that it impacts their consumers. This is an investigation, and the investigation, I'm sure, with the talent that these offices represent, will be thorough and comprehensive.
How will you divide up the work?
Well, so we're leading it out of our office, but we're open with our leadership team. We're very open to participating and using talent from literally every office in this country. So thank you all for being here. It's obviously a very important investigation, and you'll be hearing more about this as the days come.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As these attorneys general leave, listen, as they leave, I'm going to stay around. We're happy to take questions. All of our offices, the comms departments in each of these states and all the states participating are also happy to take questions, and press releases will be forthcoming.
So the list that I've heard, I don't have confirmed. Arizona, Nebraska, Louisiana, North Carolina, Colorado, Iowa, Mississippi. You can call the